Digitalization is a journey. Start on the low side, catch the low-hanging fruits, and then step by step go deeper into your journey in becoming better, more efficient, and provide more value to your clients.
The Industrial Growth Institute podcast connects you with the big thinkers, makers, and subject matter experts across all aspects of an integrated B2B industrial revenue growth function. From strategy, board oversight and transactions, through all the phases of manufacturing marketing, the complexities of industrial sales, and the nuances of marketing and sales technology and customer experience, I speak with guests who bring insights, innovative perspectives, best practices, and twists on traditional approaches. Each episode explores high-level thinking and in-the-weeds actionable tactics. If you enjoyed these discussions, then please help me out by liking and sharing the podcast, and especially by leaving a comment and giving a review. So with no further ado, let's jump into this episode. I'm Ed Marsh, host of the Industrial Growth Institute podcast. There are so many fundamental issues in industrial revenue growth, but also many that result kind of as we go along from the pace of change in the market. And today we're really going to dig into some of the emerging issues that result from that pace of change in the market. My guest today is Markus Rimmele. Markus is a highly accomplished industrial automation professional with over 2 decades of experience in that field. But then, as you'll learn, he's branched out quite a bit. He began his career as a mechatronic technician. I always have a hard time with that word, in South Germany in the early 90s. Then got an electrical engineering degree also in Germany in the early 2000s. And then later, after he immigrated to the U.S., an MBA from Georgia State University in 2018. He's passionate, as I know you're going to hear from him today, he's passionate about digital transformation in manufacturing and life cycle management. And he holds a variety of certifications in reliability and maintenance management and Lean Six Sigma, change management, machine safety, and the list goes on and on. He also co-facilitates the Digitalization Consortium with the Reliability Institute Foundation. He contributes to industry books. He speaks frequently. And actually, sometimes has time to do the stuff that he thinks and talks about as his day job, too, with everything that he's doing. So he's a high-energy guy who I've known for a year or more after discovering him via LinkedIn. And I look forward to this conversation. So welcome, Markus. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Good morning, Ed, and thank you for that introduction. With this, I do not need to talk much. You already told a lot about me.
Well, I was going to say I must have missed something. So let's start from the beginning. Tell us about who Markus is and how you ended up where you are today.
Markus is a guy who does a lot of different things. Grew up in the machine building industry. Designing, building, installation, commissioning of machinery all around the world. I think 35 countries, 4 continents. Living now for more than 16 years in the US, and found my passion in digital transformation for manufacturing. Why? There are a couple of reasons. Because with my experience, I saw a lot of, actually figured out a lot of problems and dilemmas as things didn't go that well and causing problems. And I see actually the solution in many of the problems we have in the industry in the tools which are now available through digitalization. And that's my passion. That's where I founded my business on. And that's what we talk about.
Yeah, we're definitely going to get more into it, particularly this aspect of you live the pain. You lived what it's like to be a 12-hour flight away and get there and discover you don't have one of the parts you need, or the drawing isn't correct, or whatever, all those kinds of things that we all know happen. So obviously from your accent, you're not a native of Atlanta. I know originally you're from the German state of Baden-Württemberg. For listeners who aren't familiar, orient us. Help us, major cities, tourist attractions. Why might people be familiar with that area?
Baden-Württemberg is one of the 2 southern states in Germany. On the eastern side is Bavaria, which everybody knows. And on the western side is Baden-Württemberg. Our capital is Stuttgart, nicknamed Benztown, headquarter of Porsche and Mercedes. And I grew up down in the very south on close to Lake of Constance in a city called Ravensburg, famous for its puzzles and board games. And that's this triangle where Austria, Switzerland, and Germany meets.
And so obviously a big auto and a big machine area.
Yes, automotive and machinery are the major exports of the state of Baden-Württemberg.
So not
And
cuckoo,
industrial components and all of that.
not cuckoo clocks.
Not anymore, but I guess it kind of was started with that a couple of 100 years ago in the Black Forest.
Right. So we're going to talk a lot about your background. One of the things that jumps out at me early on is that you're a fellow infantryman, albeit obviously in the Bundeswehr, not in the American Army. Did you enjoy that experience?
Yes. Back in the days, I was actually drafted, so it was mandatory for me to do military service, or I could select the civic service, but I decided to do the military service. And first, I was kind of, I don't really like it, and heard a lot of negative things about it, and it's just a thing to do. But while in the service, I actually enjoyed it. Kind of being pushed to your limits mentally and physically, the camaraderie, the structure, and all of that. I actually enjoy it. And then I signed up later for the Army Reserve and actually volunteered there and was assigned to a reserve battalion and made my way up to a staff sergeant through that.
Interesting.
And so totally I served 10 months in the mandatory service and then 9 years in Army Reserve.
So as you described your experience in the infantry, obviously there's some similarities to then stepping into the world as a field service technician, but there's also some big differences. I mean, there's no camaraderie as a field service tech. You're out there on your own, completely alone, separated from everyone. Right. Tell me about the early on in your career. You went to work as a field service technician, drawing on your mechatronic background. And obviously you learned some early career lessons that have carried going forward. What's it like as a field service tech? What lessons did you learn?
So the story and how I become a field service technician is also I kind of got thrown into it. Back then I worked for a small machine builder. We built textile machines. And on one day, the boss and owner came to me and told me, "Hey, Markus, the machine you're wiring up right now, I sold to Malaysia. And by the way, in I believe 6 weeks, you're going there and set it up and do the commissioning." And he told that to a guy who never was really out of the country, never was in an airplane, not really focused on English in school. Was kind of my worst grade. As back then, I thought, hey, why do I need English? Nobody in my environment, family, used that tool, and so therefore I didn't put much efforts in it. And first of all, I got thrown into the deep cold water, but then I also figured out while in Malaysia, actually the people there do not speak well proper English too, so therefore it's okay to kind of not being perfect. We still kind of got along with a lot of kind of like this.
Right.
That was when was that? It was in 96. So there was no internet. There was no cell phone. If you needed anything, you had to do a landline call on an international number for like $5 a minute or so. So you had to talk fast, and you had to describe your problem fast. Then you were not at the machine, you were somewhere in the office. So if there was a question, hey, how does this look or this look? Oh, damn it, I have to run, let's say, a couple of 100 meters to that machine, take a look, run back, kind of describe it. So it was just a different world. And on the other hand, you kind of got appreciated because everybody's seen you as the expert.
Right.
And you kind of got that treatment, and that was something I liked. And from this experience, there were many more.
So a lot of pressure to perform. You show up and you're the expert. You've got a toolbox. You got to make it work. How did you adapt to that over the years? I've seen that really wear down many field service technicians. They tend to spend a lot of time in their room and drink too much in the evening. It's a lot of pressure in that job. How did you adapt to that?
It's definitely pressure. And I also believe if you do it too long and if you're always on call and always on the go, your personal network at home kind of fades away. And I seen coworkers in the space who then run into problems as you described.
Yeah, it's kind of cool to have access to the Senator Lounge for the first couple of years, and then it's just another airport after a while.
Yeah, exactly. For me, it was always kind of also the adventure. What I enjoyed, going to new places, get to know new people, and for me, the positive things always dominated the more negative things. And then later in the career, when the whole family thing started, I kind of wind down on field service and looked for other alternatives in my career to be more at home. And I think it's crucial for let's say young service techs. Yes, you have to get out and you have to get your experience, but at one point of time, you have to also kind of change and find a better work-life balance and use your expertise in other things and develop your career.
And
And
obviously,
everybody needs to decide how they want to do it and what's their interest and stuff like that.
one of our threads of our conversation is going to be the tools that you help companies implement that allow you to deliver great technical service, but reduce some of the burden on both sides of that relationship. So, how about another topic that I know is often a really kind of touchy one for many field service technicians? That comes back to the manufacturers need to meet revenue targets. So, in other words, hit ship dates and calendar dates to ship machines that may not be exactly completely ready, with the expectation that, well, that's okay. We've got a great person who's going to go catch up with it in the field, and we'll tell them, what still needs to be done, and they'll take care of it. How do you feel about that question of having it ready before it ships, full quality, full inspection, versus kind of building the airplane while it's in the air on the customer site?
Unfortunately, I have been in a lot of cases, or maybe fortunately, because it always gives you a lot of experience in finalize machines at a job site. More or less, I would say the best one is actually my very first project in the US, where we sold a machine to Southern California. It was a prototype, and we kind of did the final development at the job site
Did the
in the
buyer know that it
integration
was a
of the
prototype?
factory. They thought it's already done and will start and rock and roll and produce, but the processes and everything wasn't fully developed, and there was still a large scrap rate, which was the main issue. So we engineered around and tried a lot of different things to make it perfect, and that took about a half a year, and
Wow.
that didn't go that well on the customer side.
Wow. Yeah, I'm sure not.
And then, of course, with the 9 hours time difference to Germany, that's another obstacle.
And cultural difference that plays into that
And
kind of
the
situation.
cultural difference.
And we're going to
Yes.
talk a
Yeah.
lot more about that. Now, I know earlier in your career, it looks like you spent a lot of time as what I would call a freelancer. If I understand correctly, Team Technic and Actemium both were basically contract outsource service providers for machine builders. Is that correct?
Team Technic is actually a machine builder. Actemium is, I would call it, engineering service company.
Okay. So you were jumping in and working on a variety of different projects. You weren't dedicated to a single manufacturer.
Yes, we supported machine builders with automation personnel. That was kind of my role back then for INP and Actemium, and then deal with a lot of different machine builders and technologies and industries, which puts another complexity into the game.
Complexity, but certainly additional perspective that I think you bring to every discussion you have these days. You're not just an automotive guy. You're not just a medical device guy. You've got a lot of experience across industries, including one I know that I'm familiar with, and that's the packaging machinery industry.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Throughout my career, I spent time in different industries and saw the different processes and things there, which I think add value, because if you're always in the same industry, in the same niche, you get this tunnel view, or you're
Right.
kind of in a silo. And as I also see, every industry kind of acts in a different way and is in their, let's say, transformation in a different points. Certain industries are, let's say, overall in digital transformation ahead of the game, where others are still kind of playing in the back.
Mm-hmm. Certainly, one of the things that I encounter in the sales space and with American companies as well as the subsidiaries of German companies is a very strong inclination to hire salespeople who have been in the industry for a number of years. The idea is they know the competition, they understand the lingo, they know the applications, they're familiar with the engineers in different plants. If you find a phenomenal salesperson that has that background, great. But normally, in my experience, they're retreads. They've just kind of performed in a mediocre way with company after company after company. They keep bouncing around. So I always look for super salespeople that have the ability to understand the technology. What's your take from a technician angle? What do you think?
From a technician angle, I also think you should be a good technician. And if you're a good technician or engineer, then you can adapt to every industry. And it doesn't really matter what you automate or
Right.
do,
Right.
because there's always a lot of similarities. The thing what you need to learn are the industry specific things, the whole naming convention, and the way how the standard processes work, and stuff like that.
Right.
I
Yeah.
think that's the easier part than getting that full engineering understanding in how automation, for example, works,
Right.
and how you bring a machine alive, because that process is kind of the same in every industry.
Right. Right. Yeah, I agree completely. Absolutely.
And yeah, therefore I agree with your statement regarding the sales. You need a strong sales guy, and it doesn't really matter the industry that much.
All right, so then we're going to have to dig deeper, because if we want listeners to be interested, we can't agree on everything. We're going to find some things that we could disagree about.
Okay.
So after doing that for some years, you took a leap. I think it's 4 or 5 years ago, and founded Digitalitum. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Just call it Digitalitum.
Digitalitum. Okay. So first of all, what does the name mean? And second of all, what prompted you to take that leap?
Digitalitum is a name which came out of a survey with friends and peers in my network. It should. I'd like to have that name digital in a way, in a name, and I came up with Digitalitum as it kind of sounds cool. Technically, it's pronounceable in many different languages: English, German, Spanish, and so on. And it focuses on the key, which is the key of my business is digitalization tools for manufacturing. As we talked about my experience in the manufacturing industry, and as I went through a lot of problems and dilemmas, I figured out a couple of tools which really help manufacturers, like an add-on to your regular toolbox. And I found that to be a good thing to focus a business idea on. And that's how Digitalitum was born 3 years ago.
But how about the entrepreneurial initiative and spark? Where did that come from?
That kind of was a combination of different things. I actually lost my job in 2020 in the midst of COVID, as the then company I worked for decided to downsize their US operations. And that kind of kept me thinking, what do I actually want to do with my career? Do I want to do exactly the same thing just for another company? Do I want to move somewhere else? Do I want to go back to Germany? What do I really like and enjoy? And more or less that brought me in the idea to start my own business. I started first with general consulting, also tried in the process optimization, visualization. And with this, I figured out there's a need in the market, and I can bring in some expertise, and that's how that idea was born, and throughout the years now further developed.
Cool. So who's your ideal client?
My ideal client is a manufacturer or a machine builder, small, medium, can also be big, a little bit behind on their digital transformation, kind of staying in what I call the digital fog, have to kind of figure out where to go.
So
And
let me interrupt you. How many companies are willing to raise their hand and say, "Yes, that's us. We're in the digital fog"? I mean, it strikes me that most companies don't want to acknowledge that, and so they kind of tell themselves a different story. Do you find many that are willing to say, "Geez, we're really struggling here. We need help"?
Yeah, that acknowledgement is a lot of time missing. But if you talk with these people, then you kind of get that feedback. So they don't give it to you as a straight feedback, but if you can read the lines, you can figure it out.
So you have to guide them to actually kind of acknowledge that and reach that conclusion on their own.
Yes, I would agree on that.
Sounds like you're a good salesperson.
Yeah.
So what exactly do you do for them, and why is it important for them?
So with Digitalitum, we offer what I call a digital toolbox, and I call it a toolbox in reference to the classic toolbox we all know. If we look into our toolboxes, there's always a bunch of different screwdrivers, pliers, wrenches, and so on and so on. And then comes the question, why do we need so many different tools? Why is there not this one MacGyver, Letterman, magic super tool? And the answer is, it's not out there. You have to have all these different tools because each tool can only do normal as one thing. If you take a half-inch wrench, it only can be used on a half-inch screw. If you take a flat screwdriver, it only works on a flathead screw. If you have a Phillips head, then you need a different one. And in the digital world, it's kind of the same. There are thousands, maybe nowadays, even million tools. And if you just look into what is the next best AI tools, you get the next 100 tools to see. And with this, people get overwhelmed. That's why I use that term digital fog. They kind of hear all these different buzzwords and things, and they kind of lose the connection or the ability what is this actually all about and how does it help me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we come in place by understanding manufacturing and machine building, understanding the problems, and then have on the other hand solutions. So the first process is the consulting process of helping them to get them the right tool, the tool they need. And the second part is always implementation, which is very important with everything under the digital umbrella. You need to understand how to use this tool. So it's part of training, part of integrated into their toolbox so that the tool is also used. If, for example, users are afraid if I use this tool, I may lose my job because I'm automated away, then that's a fear, and people then don't want to use that tool. If it's super complicated and they don't know how to use it, it's the same. It just the tool lays in the toolbox and collects dust.
Right.
Then even a silver bullet tool doesn't do the thing.
So you mentioned implementation. It sounds like you're also describing a significant role in change management. So you're kind of an industrial psychologist as well, then.
Exactly. And change management is a complex topic. And if we just look out there, the majority of change processes in the industry actually go wrong. And there are, of course, a lot of different reasons for that. And that's why, in general, a change management process is always a complex thing, and you need the experience and the know-how to help and support in that.
And in your sales process, do you bring that up right out front so that the decision maker that you're dealing with understands that they can't just sign the order, flip a switch, and have everything work? They're going to actually have to be involved on a prolonged basis?
Yes, of course. And depending on the product/tool, that implementation process kind of looks always different. Some tools are easier to implement, some are more complex.
Sure.
So there's a custom way in how this implementation process looks like.
Now, you said your ideal customer is a small or middle-size automation company or machine builder. So you're typically selling to the OEM then, not to the end user. Is that correct?
Combination of both.
Okay. So they must buy for slightly different reasons.
The reason they want to buy is to solve a problem, and the first thing is always to figure out or the definition or the acknowledgement that they have a problem,
right?
And what that problem is, and to then figure out the solution for it, and then of course the willingness to go that route in terms of spending money and putting time into the whole thing.
Right. Yeah, the resource commitment for sure.
Yeah.
Now, I know you're very active on LinkedIn. As I mentioned earlier, that's actually how I originally connected with you. When I saw one of your posts, you often discuss cultural differences that sometimes impede German company success in the US. But why is LinkedIn such a strong focus for you?
Because I feel the magic of LinkedIn. LinkedIn is not just a thing to do. I feel the feedback. I'm getting new contacts. For example, you.
Right.
I'm getting leads out of that. I'm connecting with interesting people, which I would never met if I just stay in my own little home and work bubble.
Or just
And
go.
it helps you to connect to people which you haven't seen for a long time, which is a general thing on social media. Like when I look back to my connections in Germany, to people just in general, which are not present on social media, the connection is kind of lost because they are out of your view. You don't know what's going on. You don't know what's happening in their lives, what they do. Maybe they change their phone number, can't reach them anymore, and yeah, they're kind of away from you. And the people which are active on social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, and so on, you kind of follow them and you see what's going on with them and where they are in their career, and what topics are interesting for them or what they talk about. And that brings new connection points that, for example, when I see a post of you, Ed, then I haven't talked with Ed for a while. Let's send them a message and let's do a little chat and see what's going on.
Right.
If we would not be connected, I would lost your name. You would be not there, and
right.
Yeah.
But for many companies in the industrial manufacturing space and the machine space, particularly German, but also American companies, trade fairs or Messe or trade shows are kind of the default. And they assume, okay, we're going to bump into people in the aisle once a year, and that's going to allow us to nurture those connections. Obviously, you've taken a different approach.
The physical meetings face to face are still important. So social media, LinkedIn, cannot do that at all. I'm all for what I call the hybrid approach. You have to go on physical events, conferences, trade shows, networking meetings, and stuff like that, to also meet people and get in contact with them and do business. But then on the other hand, you have to also be connected with them on LinkedIn and have that connection throughout the year until the next physical appearance appears.
So interesting to hear you talk about the hybrid approach in your business development, because it strikes me that's also exactly what you advocate for in terms of technical service, where, yes, of course, sometimes you have to have your belly right up to the edge of the machine and you have to see it and feel the vibration and listen to the sound and let the art guide you. But many times you can work remotely, kind of the machine equivalent of social media, I guess, some of your digital tools. Do you think is that a mindset that you apply to other areas of your life as well?
Definitely. For example, in the troubleshooting process, let's say we're in a situation where a machine is out at a customer, they have a problem, and they call the OEM. Traditionally, they call, hey, my machine is not working. I need a field service guy now. The service calls always happen by Murphy's Law on a Friday afternoon at 3:34ish, when the majority of the people already went into their weekend,
Right.
and now something is happening. Um, Before you just act like a firefighter and put all your firefighter trucks out and go to that incident and try to kill the fire, in my point of view, it's good to know what actually happened. And is it maybe just something, let's say, smaller, which an operator, maintenance personnel can solve on site?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where what I call visual support comes in place, kind of a video call on steroids to see what's going on the other side, but also be able to put additional information in. For example, put a pointer in to point to certain things, or share a document or a drawing to help the other side to just happen. And stuff like that. And then in the next level, when the troubleshooting is deeper and you have a better understanding of what's going on, you maybe know already which part of the machine or what part has the problem, and you can look in your spare parts warehouse.
Right.
Do we have that part? Can we ship it overnight and then maybe send out the guy in parallel?
Right. Yeah. So you talk a lot about culture. And just in this conversation, we talked about the culture difference between sales wants to get it out the door to recognize revenue versus service that has to make it work. We've talked about a little bit about German versus American culture. And that's, I think, probably the place that I see you comment most frequently, and a place that I'm familiar with, being married to a German, partnered with a German machine builder in the U.S. operation, working with a number of U.S. daughter companies of German manufacturers. So I get that part, and we'll certainly talk about that more. But I think you also have an international background. In addition to all your travel for work, you've got an international family. Tell me about that, and how did that come to happen? How does that change your thinking?
Yeah, my wife is actually Chinese, and so we raise our kids trilingual, Chinese, German, American.
Do you speak Chinese?
How I know a few words, but I'm not fluent. My kids call me a stupid dad because I don't speak Chinese, but that's okay.
Got it.
How did this all come together? My wife did her master's in Germany in a university close to Stuttgart, and then started at the same company I worked, and that's where we fall in love and married. And through this company, the opportunity came to go to the US, and that's how we came over. And the kids are the real Americans in the family.
Got it. So were they born here, or did they move here with you?
They are born in the US, so they are the real Americans.
Cool. Well, I think for many years, real Americans have been people who committed to the American ideal, no matter where they were born. But I'm sure that they speak with almost no accent all three of your languages, which is a phenomenal skill for them to have.
They're native.
Right. So I think there's this ongoing theme in your career and in our conversation. You've crossed over, you've bridged a lot, from technician and engineer to sales, from automotive to other industries, from German to American, from Stuttgart to Atlanta, from hands-on service to remote service, back and forth between Germany. I know you were home for Fasching a couple of weeks ago at the beginning of Lent, to America, in understanding American business, to China, et cetera. So obviously that strikes me as indicative of intellectual elasticity and kind of a creativeness and a curiosity and inquisitiveness. How much do you think that has contributed to your fairly radical approach to technical service?
When you're out in the world and going to different places, first you learn a lot of things, but then you also kind of see how they do things in other cultures, and it kind of opens your horizon.
Right.
You're not that like,
Tunnel
how do you
vision.
call this? Yeah, tunnel vision, blinded anymore. That just opens you up. And I think for me, that was a process through the years, through the decades, to become who I am now. Would a 20-year-old seen me going that way? Definitely not. But it happened that way. I developed that way, and I'm happy and satisfied. And I think that's the most important thing. You need to be happy and satisfied. You need to enjoy what you do. And specifically in running now my own company, that's actually the biggest value for me, that I actually enjoy what I do. And I can do this type of work for a couple of decades more. I do not really care.
Cool.
And so every one of us have to find their way. There's a framework called Ikigai or something like that. Are you familiar with that?
I am not.
It's like this framework where you have to find what brings value to you, what you like, but also where you can make money off and
Right,
where you
right.
can live off.
So
Because
a
if you
Venn
just have
diagram,
that,
basically.
yeah, kind of. If you just have that idea, I want to do something, and there's no one willing to pay for that, then you're not able to make money. Then it's just a hobby.
Right, right. Yeah.
But if there's a business potential in that area, then it can become your professional passion. And I'm lucky to found my professional passion, and I like it and I enjoy it.
Well, congratulations. So you're living
How
that.
about you?
Yeah, well, I mean, much the same kind of journey for sure. That's how I ended up in this consulting that I do, working with companies on revenue growth, trying to bring the best practices that they have from manufacturing and operations and apply them in a way they've never, in many cases, thought of to their revenue growth. So you're living this passion through Digitalitum, but the focus is the process of digitalization of service and I guess manufacturing. So that's a term that I hear a lot of people use: digital transformation, digitalization. It's not rolling off my tongue. You say it better than I do. But how do you define that? What does that mean?
So first of all, digitalization itself is not the thing what you need to do. And a lot of people have this mindset, oh yeah, we have to somehow digitalize our business and we have to do something. I disagree on that. I think digitalization is just a tool to help you to get better, faster, more efficient. It helps you to get into new revenue models, business models, doing things in a different way, to then also provide more value to your customers and clients. That's what's all about.
And really, if you're providing more value to them, what you're doing is helping them provide more value to their customers, I believe. Is that fair?
Exactly. That goes down the hill then from there.
So when you talk to a company about digitalization, my guess is they may be kind of resistant. If you talk to them about improving efficiency and delivering better outcomes for their customers, does that make them more receptive?
Definitely. If you ask them what keeps you up at night and what's your biggest problem you're facing, that's kind of like the door opener.
Right. So what trends are you seeing in the automation, in the machine, in the manufacturing space that you think are driving this need for digitalization?
There are a couple of drivers. First of all, machines and systems and machinery is getting more and more and more complex.
Okay.
Throughout the years, throughout the decades. Like if we go 40, 50 years back, a machine was controlled by a bunch of relays. Then a PLC came up. The PLC was programmed in ladder logic, which was kind of similar to a wiring diagram so that the maintenance people could read it. Nowadays, a PLC is programmed in computer language, and you almost need a rocket science degree to understand it. On top of that, a lot of software is just locked up by the OEM, so you cannot even go into it and troubleshoot it. On the other hand, on the skill level of the traditional maintenance technicians, engineers out there, I kind of see a decline.
In what way? What do you mean by that?
All the older folks are retiring, the so-called silver tsunami,
Right.
and not a lot of people have followed through the years. On the other hand, the education opportunities in the field aren't that strong. There's, for example, no apprenticeship program here in the US compared to Germany. And that just gives a big gap. On one side, the complexity goes up, the overall skill level kind of stays stagnant, and there's a gap to be filled. And this gap is the skills gap. So you have a complex machine, but you don't know really how to run it efficiently and how to maintain it efficiently. The old solution was you kind of, from an OEM point of view, is you sell a production support guy per equipment, let's say for a year, to keep this all rolling. That's a great idea, but this production support engineers, they don't grow on trees. They're limited in quantity as well. And so you cannot just scale that up.
Right.
And so the only way, or what I see as a solution, are tools under digitalization, IoT, which means you connect to the machine, you read machine and process data and evaluate that and get insights out of that. That's number one. And then on the other hand, the immersive technologies, augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality, they can really help in this whole know-how transfer.
Mm-hmm.
As the problem on the market is still a maintenance person or engineer comes in front of equipment, and traditionally they don't have the information they need at the location they are.
Right.
A lot of them is still in paper, in a paper binder, or somewhere unsorted on a network drive, and you just don't have what you need. On the other hand, we have, where's my phone? We have this magic device now with us, always in the pocket,
Right.
which does a lot of things. And again, with the right digital tool, there are now tools out there which can provide you the information you need at the location you are. For example, through a specific barcode, you scan, or a QR code, and that pops up that manual, that maintenance instruction,
Right.
what you need right there.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time talking to machine builders about how easy it is to implement a customer portal. And you're right. You put that barcode on a sticker on the machine, so nobody even has to think about how to get to it. They just scan that code and it takes them to the customer portal. They need to be a registered user, but then they've got the history, they've got the warranty and support information, they've got access to the knowledge base, they've got their documentation, they've got all the stuff associated with that machine, and even the common spare parts items and information, if could be information on what's according to inventory in their consignment parts inventory, and ability to order by e-commerce and all that kind of stuff. It seems like it should be so simple, but many companies resist that.
Yes, and there are so many different opportunities, and you actually can start easy by, let's say, just provide a document,
right,
and then add in the next steps
right,
spare parts and all of that as a next step, to then at the end have a full, what I call a digital services solution out there.
Right. Yeah, I love that. You're absolutely right. The people think, oh, this is such a daunting, overwhelming, massive task. It's going to be like implementing SAP, and we just don't have the bandwidth or the energy or the money. But you're right. You can take progressive steps, think of it as a maturity model, and just begin to create and add value from the beginning, and gradually layer in more value as you go.
Yeah. What I see currently on the market is that this, let's just call it digital services platforms, are getting more and more adapted, because on the other hand, clients want and needed that.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other hand, it's also a differentiator for a OEM, as you don't want to just sell a machine anymore. You also want to sell that life cycle management package
Right.
to it, and also differentiate on the market to your competition, which may come, for example, from the other side overseas, and is way cheaper
Right.
in their price.
No, I love that. And we're going to dig into that in just a second, but let's make sure that we've captured all of the major trends. So, number one, you mentioned earlier the need for speed and efficiency. Number two, you talk about talent. And I assume that means not only on the OEM side, the service technicians that can travel and facilitate commissioning and installation, but also on the end user side, where they may have a hard time recruiting local talent that has that mechatronic and electronic background to be able to help perform the local maintenance on the machines as well. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true. And that's where all this digital training applications from learning management systems into virtual reality learning comes in. As, for example, virtual reality has this add-on benefit that you can put yourself in a three-dimensional world and then actually act with that three-dimensional world. So let's throw an example out. We take the CAD model of a piece of machinery, throw that in our virtual reality, and in there we're able to operate that machine, touch buttons in a maintenance task, disassemble an assembly group, or change a filter of a pump, and do that work hands-on.
Right.
Versus just watching a video,
Right.
where the retention rate is much stronger.
Sure.
And that's the main benefit. Plus, you're independent of a location, so you can do it at any location, and you're independent from a timeline. So you can practice it while, for example, that equipment is running, and in production, you don't need to take it out of production to do a training session.
Yeah,
there.
great point. You solve that whole scheduling and overtime pay and all the other kind of issues that go with it.
Exactly.
Now, a third trend that I thought you were going to mention and you didn't is data. From the OEM perspective, I would think there's huge value to aggregating a lot of data, and presumably largely anonymized data that can be used and monetized in a variety of different ways. You didn't mention that. Is that something that you find that companies are not as interested in?
No, actually, we kind of sidetracked to other topics, as I believe data is the new gold, and that's actually the most important thing. That's why first an OEM has to get access to this data
Right.
with connectivity, and then in the second step, use that data through the magic of analytics and AI to get insights, and then help with these insights back to the operator of the machine. And use cases for this are, for example, the traditional use case, predictive maintenance. Kind of figuring out when a part goes bad, and then have that replaced before it goes bad.
Right.
And if you just look out in the automotive industry, there are already use cases in work like that. If you drive a Tesla and your brake pads are wearing down, a sensor in the brake pad detects that, and through the app or the calendar of the user, an appointment at a Tesla workshop is defined, where you then go and everything is already prepared, and that brake pad gets replaced.
All right.
And
So
what's the magic of that?
But I got to interrupt you. That's a great example. Yeah. I love the story, sexy example. But for the $50 or $200 million machine builder or industrial manufacturer listening to this, they say, "Well, yeah, that's cool, but that's Tesla. They've got billions and billions and billions, almost who knows, trillions of dollars. We're in a different world. I mean, we have to monitor expenses, and we have to be realistic about our development and our roadmap." What's your answer to that very valid concern?
That you don't need to do it for every part in the machine. Start with the wear parts. They're, in my point of view, the easiest one, because there is already a record that, for example, specific filters or other wear parts need to be replaced every half a year, every year. If you can make this process more efficient by, for example, let's take the example of a filter, detecting how dirty that filter is and then replace it when it gets to that particular level, versus saying you have to replace it every year, doesn't matter on the usage. There you bring the savings in as the filter material cost money, the replacement cost money, or there's a cost of time and there's a downtime cost of that as well. So if you're able to make this process more efficient, you can calculate an ROI pretty easy.
So let's back up a little bit to this whole question of IIoT. I mean, a lot of what you're talking about is predicated on connecting your factory to the internet. And there's a lot of concern and a lot of resistance to that. And, there's some legitimate privacy and data security considerations. What do you say when people very early in the conversation raise that as a concern?
It's important that these questions need to come up and they need to define. And cybersecurity is an important topic. And that needs to be hashed out. But it cannot be the criteria to just knock everything off and don't go that route.
Right. So in other words, acknowledge it and address it, but don't
address it.
Don't just retreat because of it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Otherwise, you stay in status quo, and there's no further development possible.
And so in your experience, you can have a comfortable conversation with a business leader and with their IT department and help them understand how they can undertake these sort of digitalization initiatives without jeopardizing data security.
Yes, definitely.
All right. So now let's talk about the value that buyers put on quality and service and support in capital equipment purchasing decisions. And the reason I want to go here is because obviously a lot of what you're talking about is differentiating yourself, ability to provide better service, and a lot of value associated with servicing. But I know from a number of conversations, I've been selling machines for a long time. I work with clients who do. And a couple of years ago, I led a group that did a lot of research into through qualitative interviews, speaking with buyers across business roles and across company sizes, privately held, middle market, through enterprise, publicly traded companies and multinationals. And really what I heard time and time and time again was that it's not a factor when it comes to the decision. They expect it. They think it's table stakes. Everyone says it. And it really is not, at the end of the day, a major criteria in the choice. We tend, as manufacturers, we project that onto buyers. We assume it ought to be very important to them because we talk so much about it, but it may not be as important as we think it is. What do you say to that?
Actually, a good point. I kind of see that on the market as well, as the purchasing decision itself is often done by somebody out of a procurement department, and that's again a cultural thing. The people out of the procurement department are incentivized by getting the best deal out of it.
Sure.
And as more money they save, as more benefits and commission and whatever they get, and that's kind of
of course,
the area where I see that problem occurring. On the other hand, I believe that service has to become a differentiator because of the problems in the market, and over time they will further develop. I also see that actually factories or end users put in their specification that a OEM has to deliver service at a certain level. So it's not just like you need to answer the phone. In the future, there will be a specification saying you have to have a digital platform which can do this, this, and this. And if you're not able to provide it, you cannot bid.
But they put everything in their specification package. They're typically 100 pages long, with down to the kind of Zerk fittings they want used and everything else. And then if you say, okay, yes, we can build that machine, it's going to cost $7 million. On the other hand, if you let us build it the way we normally do and just make sure we use the controller you like, we can do it for $2 million. What do you want to do? Well, suddenly all the stuff in the specification goes out the window. That's my experience.
It's always a negotiation,
sure.
And depending on what is it, but the kind of the specification is a barrier of entry. Let's just
that's a good way to put
call it this way.
Right.
And if you put that barrier of entry higher, then the other hand needs to deliver also more in order to be even accepted to bid.
Yeah, good point.
And that's what I kind of see on the market going on.
So another thing this ties into that's always interested me is what I would call the gradual decay in OEE that I see over time, as the familiarity, the recency of training, the availability of spare parts, the consistency of engagement with the manufacturer, all those tend to slow over time, and gradually the OEE of any given machine decays. Do you see that happening? Is it as common as I think it is? And what would you say is the solution?
I think it's a common thing, as for example, the people trained at the beginning when the machine is new and fresh, further develop, go somewhere else. That know-how fades away, and the new people coming in don't get this know-how, as a lot of, and that's the problem of the whole know-how sharing, is still done from person to person, right, telling things, shadowing people,
right.
And if that person leaves for whatever reason, that know-how is gone.
And then the PMs start getting postponed, and eventually they get skipped, and before you know it, the machine's running at 60% of the way it was designed.
Exactly. And that's where I see the opportunity for, again, digital solutions, like having a training package available through an online channel. And just before this meeting, I saw a LinkedIn message from OEM we both know, where they showed off their latest training platform for their machinery, where maintenance people and so on can sign up on a subscription fee to learn the specifics about that equipment and their processes. And that's a good way to keep that know-how flowing, and have this know-how handoff from person A to person B.
Sure.
As again, the machines are complex, and you have to have a specific knowledge in operation, maintenance, and reliability.
But let me play devil's advocate. Let's say the machine was installed and gradually the OEE has declined, and now it's running at 60% of what it originally was capable of. If they're running efficiently enough, they don't have extra shifts, they don't have costly downtime, they're meeting their order and shipment requirements, then is it necessarily a problem?
It all depends on the overall cost structure that company have. If that is still all kind of in the balance, it's good. But in a lot of times, the cost structure then also shifts, right, and then all of a sudden, you're not on the good side anymore, and you have to get your OEE back to 100% in order to be efficient and good on the cost side. And that's where then the ROI calculation comes in. Is there maybe a major maintenance task or retrofit required in order to bring it back up?
Yeah, I think that's a fair answer. I think where I was going with it is that often we in the machine world tend to believe in, it's kind of a binary situation. Either the machine is running optimally or it's not. And if it's not, then we need to get it running optimally. But that's not always necessarily the case. Sometimes it can run suboptimally, and it's adequate for what people need.
Yeah. The curve kind of goes down or goes like this.
Right, fluctuates a little bit, but it gets done what it needs to get done.
Yeah, but the first thing is that you have to actually measure the OEE. If you don't
That's
even
true.
measure that, then it's all guessing. Oh yeah, back in the days when we bought this machine, I had the feeling it ran much better than now.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
good feeling for you,
Yeah,
but where's the data?
exactly. So thinking about this from the OEM perspective, if you can provide tools for them that they can in turn use to provide additional value and services for their buyers, the interesting thing about that, as I think you mentioned earlier, it creates new potential revenue streams, and particularly
Mhm.
recurring and predictable revenue. And that feels to me very exciting for companies that tend to have a lot of unpredictability and fluctuations in typical capital equipment company business cycles. What's your reaction?
My reaction is actually yes. With digital services, you have the opportunity to sell service packages or service deliveries as a subscription. Uh, for example, this access to a training platform where you can charge a client on a monthly base. Traditionally, always a couple of $100 per user per month or something like this.
Right.
And if you're able to sell that to your entire customer portfolio, that is a very stable revenue which comes in every
Mm-hmm.
month. Other things are like let's call it a hotline with added value through visual support can help you.
Right.
On one side, it's always a pain for a machine builder to set this up, to have their people work nights or weekends, or at least be available,
Mm-hmm.
and incentivize them with extra money. On the other hand, if you're able to, again, sell this through a subscription, more or less the subscription pays that all. And so from accounting and business standpoint, that can be all taken care. And there are plenty of examples out in the OEM world where this is already done successfully. And if you then tie OEE to it and kind of, I always call it, sell an insurance against unplanned downtime,
Right.
that's kind of the highest level as of right now, where you can go.
Now,
And that also provides a lot of value to the user of the equipment.
sure, of course. I think it was about 5 years ago, maybe, that the CEO of Zora, that's a subscription billing company that actually kind of was spawned by Salesforce, he wrote a book called Subscribed. And he predicted widespread adoption of subscription models, product as a service, technical support as a service, all that kind of stuff
Mhm.
in a subscription model like SaaS software. And it seemed to get traction and continues to have traction in large companies, but less so in small and mid-sized companies. We touched on this earlier. I think there's a perception that it's too difficult for them to develop and implement it. But obviously, your value proposition is you don't have to do it yourself, and it doesn't have to be an overwhelming project. You can implement it fairly easily. How do you help people kind of see that and internalize that?
Yeah, in my point of view, you do not need to build it on your own anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically, machine builders often tend to say, "Oh, we have actually the software engineers, and technically we can do that on our own." Yes, but
Yes,
that
but
guy is doing already put 100% of their time into projects. There's just no time to do that. And in my point of view, in this buy do it yourself versus buy decision is, if you buy a product and you implement that, that's way easier as if you build something on your own, which is then also difficult to get through the life cycle and through the different versions and keep it up to the developments as we see. If we look out in the world, every day there's something new.
right.
And if we just look at ChatGPT, in summer last year, I didn't know what ChatGPT is. Now I cannot live with it anymore,
Right.
kind of.
Right.
And that's just one example of new things coming in. And then on the other hand, of the thousands of different tools which now use somehow AI and do something with it. It's just incredible, and you have to stay on top of that. And specific software companies which do specific products, or let's call it digitalization tools, they just focus on that one thing and make it better and better and better.
Right.
And again, there with the subscription model, with that subscription, you always get a new version and additional benefits and additional features and stuff like that.
Well, and think about the irony of the fact that what you're doing is talking about implementing solutions to facilitate remote service, because you don't want somebody to have to wait 3 weeks for somebody to fly several thousand miles and fix a problem.
Yep.
And then you're talking about basically creating from scratch technology that's supposed to help that, but it's going to have the same exposure. If it's not mature and it doesn't work, then somebody's going to have to wait 3 weeks and fly several thousand miles to get there to troubleshoot the remote diagnosis technology that was supposed to solve that problem. So it's all kind of backwards.
Exactly.
Yeah. Another way that I look at this, coming from the sales and revenue growth perspective, is what I call an entry sale. So oftentimes my clients are OEM machine builders. Maybe they sell a machine that's $1 million machine. It's in a mission critical application in a facility. They're trying to get into a target account or a prospect that, let's say, already has 3 of a competitor's machines lined up in their building. And so their sales process is to go to the plant engineer and try to convince the plant engineer to go out on a limb. Yes, maybe there's some things that aren't perfect, but it's okay. And they want them to go out on a limb and say, hey, let's try something completely different. And, that's a potentially career-ending move. And it's a hard way to sell. Alternatively, if you can view some of these digital services like you're talking about as an easy way to get into an account, to create value, to establish a commercial relationship, maybe it's $5,000 a month. It's below, it's within the threshold of what the maintenance department can approve, for instance, as an ongoing expense at a company, and doesn't have to go to the board of a multinational for a capital expense. Now you're on the floor. You're meeting people, you're learning about the operation, you're collecting data, you're doing your discovery, you're doing your business development, you're building credibility, you're creating relationships, and then you've got an opportunity not only through the research that you're doing, so you can potentially identify opportunities to help or opportunities for other solutions that you can bring, but also when it comes time for them to think about buying another machine, you're no longer another vendor that they're going to add to their matrix, but you're a trusted advisor. Have you seen companies use this approach successfully to help them sell their equipment eventually?
I would say yes, and the successful companies on the market are practicing that already.
Do you have examples that you're at liberty to share?
To my understanding, they're not the majority on the market. As the machine building market is very large and has a lot of, let's say, small and medium players there, hundreds, if so thousands of them. In my point of view, the majority hasn't adapted fully digital services solutions yet. So on one side, there's still a big market for that. And then large companies like, for example, Trump, they're playing the game already. They even go into they're not selling, or they have a business model where they're not sell asset or machinery. They go into manufacturing or a cost per part, which comes out of the machine, and go that business model.
Wow.
Which is, yeah,
it's a very sophisticated model, obviously.
Way up there,
right.
And way advanced of where we're standing as an industry.
Right.
Does that model works in every case? Of course not. But there is a certain niche and application where that can actually be valuable.
Sure. And of course, in the meantime, they're collecting phenomenal amounts of data that give them insights and help them sell into other accounts and share, do audits and share all kinds of information that can be helpful.
Exactly.
So you spent a lot of time thinking and learning and sharing ideas about this. What blogs or YouTube channels or podcasts do you recommend that folks in the manufacturing space that really want to become more comfortable and more familiar and more knowledgeable about this, where do you recommend people go?
There are nowadays a bunch of different blogs and podcasts or people out there. The Manufacturing Hub podcast is a pretty insightful one, which I follow on regular basis. Jake Hall, the Manufactural Millennial, is definitely a guy to follow as a kind of enthusiast on manufacturing process and automation. Um, there are many more. You kind of hit me on the cold side. I haven't prepared for that question, but I can send you later on a couple of names and links to add that on.
Yeah, perfect. And here's just a question of personal interest to me. When you listen to a podcast or a YouTube video, what speed do you listen at?
I listen it at a normal, regular speed.
Really?
Are you doing double?
No, I don't do double. I typically do 1.5.
Yeah. Sometimes I do 1 to 5, but I don't do that fast. Maybe it's also as most of the podcasts I hear in English, but English is not my native language, and I need a little more processing time.
But it's obviously not your native language, but your English is phenomenal. To be able to have the kinds of conversations you have without hesitation and with a full vocabulary. I know from my attempts to speak German, as many years as I've worked at it, it's a very different language. It's not easy. So I've got tremendous respect for your ability, and particularly for your kids now speaking Chinese and German and English. That's really cool. So as we get ready to wrap up here, what would you say most people get wrong or misunderstand about digitalization?
Again, that you have to digitalize for whatever reason. Digitalization is a way to get better, in my point of view. And then the other misconception is there is this magic jack of all trades, Letterman multi-tool out there, which can solve all your problems. I believe you need many, many different tools in your toolbox, and everyone has their personal toolbox. As we all know, my toolbox may not fit your needs.
So many sounds expensive and overwhelming. Give me a rule of thumb. Does that mean a typical company may use 5 different tools or 50? What do you think?
It always depends. It's custom, like your personal toolbox.
Right.
You may have a small one, a medium one. It depends on what you do, what you work on. There is always a couple of common tools, and then you need here and there always a special tool for that once in a year coming up thing
that you can't use a crescent wrench on.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So how do people find you, Markus? Obviously, I'll share your LinkedIn profile where you do a lot of your activity. But if people want to learn more or reach out to you, how do they catch you?
So LinkedIn is always a good channel. I'm very active there, and I don't miss a message there. Also follow my company there, Digitalitum. We have now more than 2,000 followers there. Then we have a website, www.digitalitum.com, which goes currently through an upgrade in version 2.0 soon. There's a good old cell phone, which maybe you put into the show notes. Okay. And I have, of course, an email as well, markus.rimmele@digitalitum.com.
Cool. So, all right. So
several different channels, always in reach.
And you're always active. I've always found prompt replies from you, and that's just for conversation. I'm sure there's somebody reaching out to you with commercial interest. You'll respond very quickly as well.
Definitely.
So bring us home. Kind of final thoughts to end the conversation and leave us with, particularly around the commercial opportunity, not some of the hassles of implementation, but the commercial opportunity for OEM manufacturers. Paint this picture for us of this promised land.
Digitalization is a journey. Don't start with the super complex mega solution, start on the low side, catch the low-hanging fruits, and then step by step go deeper into your journey in becoming better, more efficient, and provide more value to your clients.
Perfect.
That's what it's all about.
Great way to wrap it up. Fabulous conversation. Really appreciate your insights and always enjoy our conversations, Markus. Thanks so much for joining me today.
And thanks for having me. I enjoy always talk with you and bounce off ideas and talk about the things which matter.
Terrific. Thanks very much.
Thanks.